We're live? We're live.
We are live. It's the first time.
Listen, we are crazy excited about this opportunity to be with everybody, to be with HonorBound. So just want to welcome everybody that's logging on and checking us out. And just in case there's anybody out there who doesn't know, my name is Jonathan Wyns. I am the Northeast Regional Leader. And we are streaming from my church in Breezewood, Pennsylvania. And we have with us one of our nationals here tonight. Let him introduce himself.
Yeah, I'm Josh Hubbell, North Central National with HonorBound Motorcycle Ministries. And glad to be back in Breezewood, Pennsylvania.
Right.
Yeah.
Good to have you. So glad that you made the trip down here. So, should we just get right into it?
Yeah,
and we'll go?
Yeah. I think before we start, it would be good to celebrate some of the stuff we have. National level events coming up. I know Keith Turcotte every year at Daytona Bike Week, that's going to be going on March 1 through 9. He sets up a ministry, and I helped him out last year. What I love about the ministry that goes on down there is he's been faithful, right? And I get to come in years later from when he started. And there's fruit going on. I remember the last day. Now, I'm bad with numbers, okay? So when I say the number, it's either going to be double what I said or half of what I said. I don't think I'll get this right. But he has this Boss Haas riding group come up, and I think it's 200 of these bikes. So that means it's either 400 or 100, but it's a lot of them.
Right, it is.
And because of his faithfulness, he's been able to establish those relationships. So when those dates, even before, if HonorBound could just keep him in prayer, this is, if you look up on Google and you look up top 10 motorcycle rallies, Daytona always shows up. People from all over the world show up to this thing, and we know that spiritual warfare is real. And so if we can just lift them up in prayer and maybe send them encouraging messages during that week, I think that would be great to support our Southeastern National, who you work with.
Right, excellent. Yeah. Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, what else we have going on? Let's just do some upcoming events. Let's get those out of the way first. Let's do some dates.
Yeah, so for the first part of the year, I would say Daytona's a big event that we have coming up. The number 2, a national level event we got coming up is Run for the Wall, and that takes place May 15th through the 25th. And it's a long event because we start in Los Angeles. And we go all the way to DC. This is it's a ride dedicated to honoring our veterans, and there's tons of bikes. This is a gigantic bike parade that goes all across the U.S. And if you Google Run for the Wall Central Route is where Dwayne Grider, who's our South Central Regional. Right, I believe that's the term, right?
Yes,
South Central.
That's what he is tonight.
Yep. So he's the senior chaplain on that. He organizes. There's other HonorBound people involved in that, but he organizes that. We have a big presence on that ride, and if you Google Run for the Wall Central Route, you can you'll find the website where all the stops are. If you're local, this is not something you want to miss out on. Even if you're just given an afternoon or an evening, and you say, you know what, I can make that stop, I would encourage you to show up. Show up and support, and it's really an amazing thing. Right,
and then what's been added to Run for the Wall, which is 30 some years. I don't know the exact number, but it's over 30 years they've been doing this. They added 2 years ago, after the COVID restrictions ended, they added what they call the Sandbox Run. So Run for the Wall, those 3 routes that come from California, end in DC at the Vietnam Memorial Wall on Saturday morning of Memorial Day weekend. And they honor our fallen veterans, specifically Vietnam, but also right around there, there's the other conflicts and wars and memorials. And so it's a moving time. But that mission complete for that part. And then Sunday morning of Memorial Day weekend, they added what they call the Sandbox Route to honor our younger veterans, those who fought in, anything, Afghanistan, Iran, Iraq, over there, but even some other lesser publicized conflicts are on a wall in Marcel, Illinois. And so what we do now is on Sunday morning, a group leads out of DC for the sandbox route, and that is 3 days, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday, to get to Marcel, Illinois. So check out that route as well. So if you're in Maryland or Pennsylvania or Ohio or Indiana or Illinois along that route, man, and one of the stops is happening there, or if you happen to live close to an overpass or something where they're going to be riding under, because on those websites specific routes are mentioned, man, get out there and wave a flag and just welcome the bikers as they go under. So it's just a great opportunity for Honor Bound to support another way, whether you're riding in it or not. So that's the sandbox route. But then we have a huge event coming up in June. So why don't you?
Yeah, June 21, 22, 23. That's going to be Honor Bound's 25th anniversary, and it's taking place in Indiana, where Honor Bound was actually founded. So it's kind of like a homecoming, coming home to the state. And this is what I'm so excited about this event is 5 years ago we celebrated our 20th, and in that 5 years we've just seen growth, we've seen opportunity. This is not just a national event, this is an international rally for Honor Bound. And we're inviting our Ukrainian chapter to come over.
Yeah.
And if you've been paying attention to the news, there's a lot going on over there.
Right.
And so what I would just invite us to do, I think there should be a link in the description. We're really taking an offering to help our guys over there, primarily the ones that can. So right now, our missionary, Curtis Hubbell, who's in Poland, and the president over there, Sasha, we're trying to raise funds to help them get over here, because it seems like it's going to cost them the most, and they probably don't have the most amount of resources available to them. So there should be a link on there. If you click on that link, there's some suggested donations, and kind of the thought behind those donations are, if your chapter has 5 people in it, if everybody gave $30, that's $150. And so it's kind of banding together with your chapter. Maybe think about it, if we all gave to this, it wouldn't have to be a big expense on one person. If you have a different amount in mind, you're just giving as an individual, there is an option. And if you are like me and you are technology challenged, reach out to me. I'll help you out with that whole process, and we'll make sure the money gets where it needs to go. So,
right, right. Yeah, so that's, what a cool thing that would be. We went international, however many years that was, that Curtis established that chapter in Ukraine with those, I think it was 10 members that they started with. And just all that they've gone through in the last so many months, whatever it's been now, if we could bring Sasha and Curtis over to be a part of this event, then we can really call this an international anniversary celebration. So looking forward to that. There's opportunity. You can give as an individual or as a chapter, come together and do this. And is there a goal amount that we're trying to, do we have any idea what it will cost?
I think when we're trying to guesstimate, it's about $2,500 that we would have to raise to have both of them come over, fly into DC. That's the plan. And but yeah, the goal is $2,500, so $2,500.
Right. So Josh's church up in Valparaiso is handling the money side of it. That's where the money will go, and then of course they'll help distribute that or buy the tickets or whatever that's going to happen. We'll work out those details. So
they're also the church. I don't know if I mentioned that, hosting it.
Right. Right. Yeah. And what is the name of that church? Just so.
It's Heartland Christian.
Heartland Christian.
And
okay.
When we were talking, because we started talking about having an anniversary years in advance. I think 2 years ago is when the Nationals really started to talk about it. And when we were narrowing down where we might want it, Indiana kind of stood out because that's where it started.
Right.
And that's where I live, and I'll be honest, I really wanted it to happen at Heartland because it's a church that's excited about what's going on in Honor Bound.
Right. And you can sleep in your own bed.
There you go. I know. I finally do not have to drive 10 hours to go to one of these things, right? Or more.
Gotcha.
So, but I assure you, it's not just so Josh doesn't have to drive. They're going to put on they're going to go out of their way to be good hosts. I know they will. We also have Doug Clay coming in.
Right.
The General Superintendent of the Assemblies of God. We're honored to have him, excited to have him. And whether, I've seen it, whether he gets an hour, whether he gets 10 minutes, I mean, he brings the word. He is a disciple of Jesus Christ, and I love hearing him. I do. He's always such an encouragement. So.
And didn't think about this till now, but what a great thing for him to see one of the active Assembly of God ministries, specifically motorcycle ministry, doing what they do. He gets to not just read about it in some kind of report, but he's seeing us firsthand. So that'll be a great thing.
We're excited.
All right. So that's go ahead.
That's June 21, 23. So a lot of these other events we want you to pray about. We want you to maybe come participate. If you are honor bound, we really invite you to come out, make history with us, And we understand not everybody can make it. Right. But we really want to encourage people to come out and be a part of this.
Right. And this is not a outside of that giving to bring Sasha and Curtis over. Also, think about it, a lot of our national chaplains participate and run for the wall, and that's a huge expense. So
absolutely,
just keep that in mind too. If you want to just be giving towards that too, you can just contact your local or your regional leader, your national, and just help them out if you can. So that's the announcement we're going to do. Obviously, when we get into spring and summer, we all get real busy. So that's the announcements we wanted to make for tonight. But let's talk about this. Why are we here?
Yeah. Why am I out here, John?
Why is Josh not in Indiana tonight, and why is he in Pennsylvania? So I think it was November, just at our local chapter meeting here in Breezewood. And Breezewood is actually a multi-church chapter. It's not just our church. So we have monthly meetings and just get everybody together. And at one of those meetings, one of our guys by the name of Raymond came up with the idea. He had seen a podcast of a friend of ours from North Carolina that I have participated in, kind of been interviewed on, that kind of thing. He's also interviewed some of our Jersey guys and gals. So we have a relationship with this guy. He does this podcast. He does it daily kind of thing, all about motorcycle ministry and motorcycle riding and all that stuff. So Raymond saw that and thought, why can't we do this for Honor Bound? And so thought it was a great idea. Our chapter sitting in that meeting thought, yeah, that's what's going on. That's what we do now. It's how we get information out. It's a digital platform that we can get information out. And so I told the guys, I said, I'll pitch it to the Nationals and see what they say. And so I sent a text. I don't know if it was the next day or what, but it was close after that, and got a very good thumbs up from everyone. But Josh got very excited about it. And one of the things you said was you try to find things that are high impact, and you felt that this would be a high impact thing. And what I shared with the Nationals was this would be a great way for Honor Bound to feel more connected, because we do have, and just give a shout out to a friend of mine up in Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Jeff Perino, who's been Honor Bound for years, and he's kind of the only one in that area. So I mean, it's tough. I mean, he whenever there's Honor Bound going that way, Keith and Lynn for years did Laconia, which is up in New Hampshire, a bike rally up there. Jeff would come over, but most of the time Jeff is alone up there. And we want the Jeff Perinos of Honor Bound to feel like they're a part of this thing. So Jeff, if you're on and listening, you better give me a thumbs up and tell me you love me or something. So, because I mentioned your name 15 times. Okay. But all over the place. We got guys like that, or we got small chapters that are just, we want you guys to know that we're in this together.
Yeah.
And here's a way to do that, to make announcements, to feel connected. But then the other important thing I felt would be really great is that is what we're envisioning this to be down the road is a platform where Honor Bound can pose questions. If there's an area of struggle, that we could post those or address those questions in a national format, and from our nationals. Josh has made a commitment that when he can, we're kind of thinking quarterly for this now, but we'll see how that goes and how that may change or develop. But we can remotely bring in, Keith or Howard Rainey from Arkansas there, and have those guys answer these questions on this podcast. So that's kind of the thought. So we'll be more connected. And that way, when an answer is given, perhaps the answer came from Nebraska, or the question came from Nebraska. And let's say Howard Rainey fields the question and answers it. Everyone in Honor Bound is going to hear the same question. They're going to hear the exact same answer. So Indiana's going to hear what Texas heard. Texas is going to hear what Florida heard. Florida, you get the picture.
Yeah.
We're all going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
So that is one of the great goals for this what do we call this podcast or whatever it is. And we don't even know a name for it. So we called it the No Name Podcast because we're just couldn't think of anything, but whatever, or the Roadshow.
Let it organically grow, right?
Right.
And if we come up with something great, No Name's a great starter. If it stays forever, that's great. But what I like about that point you're giving is, here's the thing. God is blessing Honor Bound. We're growing, but as an organization grows, vision leaks. And this is a great way to keep people involved,
right?
But also keep us focused on what's important, keep us mission-based, right?
Right.
What are we here for?
Right.
We're here to tell others about Jesus, and we're here to do it the best we can. And what I really love about this whole idea is that there was a young guy in your meeting that says, I want to use my gifts. And you said, let's go for it. This is a lot of people. I know there's a lot of young men out behind the camera, young women that are really trying hard to use what God has given him for the kingdom. And I think that's so important that we keep in touch with that. We encourage the next generation to use their gifts. And when we all work together, keep on mission, I believe God does something with that. He blesses that.
Right.
So
I'm
excited about this.
Right. So the sky's the limit with some of this stuff. So that's vision. So tonight is the kickoff, the starting. And what will happen is, obviously this is on Facebook Live, but what we will do after this, it becomes like an archived video afterwards that can be accessed at any time. So it can be shared across platforms and things like that. So just want to make you guys aware of that. If someone works second shift or something, or can't make it, or you happen to be in Ukraine and it's 3 a.m. right now, you might think sleep is more important than watching this at the moment. So, but hopefully even those guys in Ukraine through translation will be able to take part in this and hear what's being said in the United States, where the whole thing started. And of course it'll have to be adapted for their situation. But man, I just think it's a gift from God that we can do this and connect.
Yeah, we're using it as a tool to further the ministry we're a part of. But I think what we're going to be talking about too will be useful for any motorcycle ministry. So this is something we can share with other ministry pages, right? Let your friends know about this. We want them to be a part of the conversation. And this is not just for Honor Bound, but we want to make it for everybody, because we're all on the same team ultimately. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So.
Right, and so one of the other things that was mentioned when I pitched it to the Nationals was, it gives a platform, because at our regional events, like Iron Horse in Texas, Rumbling Razorbacks in Arkansas, Hot Pursuit in Breezewood, which is the premier event that you want to be at no matter if you go to anything else. Okay,
it's a good one.
That was a shameless plug for Hot Pursuit. But yeah, so what that does is those regional events, of course, not 100% of our membership can ever make those events. And some great things are shared, our messages are given, vision is cast at those events, but it's limited who can see it.
Yeah.
So here we are where we can expand that now.
Yeah, and that's when me and you were talking about this, and we were just talking about ideas. I really loved what you mentioned at last year's Hot Pursuit. You gave a really good message. I think it was 4 points, and
right.
I never remember the 4 points. But go over those 4 points of what holds us back in motorcycle ministry.
Right. So Lord laid on my heart for Hot Pursuit this past year, and a visual that we used that day was that I contacted the local sheriff's department and borrowed some shackles, handcuffs, and the feet shackles, the belt, that whole thing, which really restricts when they're transporting a prisoner. It really restricts their movement. So we brought a guy up on stage and we handcuffed him, who was I think he was a former correctional officer. That's kind of comical that we put him in the shackles. But
I'm just glad it wasn't me.
Right. And then we have other honor bound members that it would have been flashbacks and traumatic and PTSD kind of stuff going on if I put them in shackles again, because they've been freed from that. So, But so here's the things. So that's the visual. I don't have all those props here tonight, but that's the visual, that there are some things, and there are more. This is not like an exhausted list. These are just 4 things that we identified that we're going to use today. So we'll call the first 2 kind of the feet being shackled, okay? The movement. And 2 things that we've got to be careful of as we've been called into this ministry. And this is ministry. This is not a riding club. It's not any of that. It's ministry. So we want to be involved in ministry, right? So that's the heart we want to portray. But in that, there's a couple things that can really hinder our movement or our progression. And one of those is our past. We can't let our past shackle us to the point where we got to get free from that. So if we don't deal with our past, if we don't, we sing those songs in church and chain breaker and all that stuff, and it sounds great when we're singing it, but if we're not living it, we're really hindering our progress in our ministry.
So when you say our past, you're talking about mistakes,
right? Hurts,
yeah,
or even patterns in our past. We got to break free from some of those things. And something that comes to mind a lot is when Jesus called those first disciples.
Yeah.
And those fishermen, he said to them a phrase, I think this is Old King James, but it went like this: I will make you to become. In other words, Jesus saw something in them that they didn't see in themselves. And he called them out of that, called them out of their past into a new future. So we got to get free from our past. I'm calling that one of the legs of this thing. The second one is unforgiveness. Kind of goes with the past, hurts from the past. Got to be careful that we're not holding on to unforgiveness, because that'll turn into bitterness, and then we focus more on that person that hurt us or that thing that hurt us, and we've just hindered our walk again, or our progression in ministry, because our legs are shackled by our past or from unforgiveness. So that's those 2 things.
A few interesting things that I'm noticing about, the legs. So both of them are usually what go behind us. And what I'm noticing is our past can be something that we did,
Right.
and then unforgiveness is something.
True.
And here's the scary thing about
Right.
unforgiveness. This is when I read the Bible, okay, this is one of the things that Jesus says, you got to get right because you don't want to stand before me with unforgiveness.
Wow. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know. Have you ever been with somebody and they see somebody else walk into the room and their demeanor changes? And I don't know if it might be pain, it might be
Right.
anger, but whatever you were doing before, they are now focused on that other person.
Right.
And the hurt.
Right.
And I think it neutralizes.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. You've just thrown yourself into neutral.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're not in a gear anymore. You've just hindered whatever's gone. And those are two things that the Bible tells us we can get freedom from.
Yep.
We don't have to be the person we used to be. We don't have to live in unforgiveness. And those are two things that'll help us. We deal with those. We're moving, we're making progress. And we want to see that happen in this ministry for each and every individual disciple of Jesus Christ that's wearing that honor-bound patch on their back. We want us to be as free as we can.
Yeah.
If we move on to the hands, okay? So if we got the feet shackled, and then we got the hands shackled. Just two things, and this list could be extended to multiple things. Even while I'm saying it, you might think of some other things. So this is just the list that the kind of Lord put on my heart. So the feet, what shackles the hands? What shackles that stuff? And one of the things that came to mind was a lack of knowledge. Like we haven't put much effort into becoming better, learning more, being continual learners in this thing. That we don't get to a point where we think we got this whole thing figured out, or even regular churchgoers get into this mentality where, well, my daddy taught me this, my granddaddy taught me this, and this is the way we've always done it. And it might be a lot of right, but there might be some that's not quite biblical or quite right. And we need to be learners. We need to be in the Word. We need to be digging into that stuff. We need to be listening to good speakers. We need help with that. So don't let a lack of knowledge, don't become so set that you're not a learner anymore. Be a constant learner. If you don't, I think you start shackling one of those hands. Like you're not going to be as effective as you could be. And we're Pentecostal, so we get the Holy Spirit is my help, and absolutely He is. But in our relationship with Christ, He does so much. He does all that we need. But there's a requirement. There's things that He asks us to do, and one of the things I think of is be a learner, be teachable.
So let me ask you this, okay? Let's say you've got a brand new member in Honor Bound, and he has now heard that point. What would be some good steps? Like he says, I want to learn more. Who can he talk to? Who can mentor him? I mean, this could be a guy in Nebraska, a guy here in your local church. Right. What would you say is a good first solid step? Okay,
so we're a church-based ministry, so you should be in a church submitted to the pastoral leadership there, and if God has put you there, then I think that's your number one resource. Okay. Go there first, and then you're honor bound. So you have leadership in honor bound, whether it's our nationals or regional leader or something that you can reach out to, and all this can be relationship based. So the more we connect, the more we stay in touch with one another, the more we plug in, and we know it's part of being honor bound is that you are serving in a local church. You're not just an attender, the cool motorcycle person that shows up and you're not doing anything else. We want you in that church serving and doing. So that's your first primary resource for learning and help as well. And then, of course, we live in a digital age, man. There is so many resources out there, and that could be something that could be posted on here. If someone had a question like that, a brand new guy, maybe a young person saying, "I hear you, but give me some resource. Give me a book. Give me who's a good podcast to listen to. Who's solid." And we could answer it that way through comments and stuff from this podcast.
Yeah. I think a mistake I see a lot of people do, and this might tie back into the unforgiveness. Sometimes people get hurt, or sometimes they're embarrassed, or even discouraged, and I see them draw away from the church.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I know something's going on with you a lot when you don't show up to church for 2 weeks.
Right.
And that makes me nervous. And I know a lot of the times, because I'll be honest, sometimes I don't feel like showing up to church. And that's usually one of the days that God has something for me.
Right. Sure.
Right? And
sure.
I really love that, because who's the president of the North Central University with the Assemblies of God? Man, is the name of Mike? Is it Mike Hagan?
Don't
Scott
put me
Hagan.
on that spot. I have no idea.
It's Scott Hagan. I'm 98% sure.
Yes, I agree. That's who it is.
Yeah, I run into him a lot. We're not good friends. I just hear him speak. But one of the things he says that sticks with me is men stop developing after age 40.
Okay.
And what he's saying there, I believe he says this, but this could be like numbers. I'm misquoting it, right? But we get to the point where we've lived enough life that we think we know enough, that we don't. We know we've got enough to get through the rest of our life, and we stop learning. We stop seeking, because my little 1.5-year-old daughter, she is absorbing everything she can, because she wants to talk. She wants to walk. There's a mentality once we get older. And if I'm completely honest, I'm 30. I'll be turning 32 this year. And I catch myself falling into that trap of leaning on what I've learned before. Right. And maybe not challenging myself to ask questions, to be open to new opinions. Right. And I think as we formulate all this, and I think you pointed this out, it's got to be based in the Bible. Right. New opinions are great, but we got to test everything.
Right. I can't think of the scripture off the top of my head, but Old Testament talks about a plumb line. And plumb line was an old device before we had levels, that plumb line needs to be God's word. Yeah. So no matter who you're listening to, who you're reading, make sure that stuff is lining up with the word. It's along that plumb line of his word. It's got to be the right thing. So the last thing, so if I don't forget, I'll get sidetracked here, because we did 3, and then we don't want to, we did a 3-point sermon and we forget there's a 4th one. So the 4th one I think is a huge one in this day and age, and I want to leave it with this. So here's a problem in the American church right now.
Hot button issue.
This is, and not just in the church. It's a cultural thing. Yeah. Okay. So the cultural thing is financial. Oh wow. And we buy. Advertisers are great. They get paid to make us want things. Yeah. And too many of us are living, maybe not beyond our means, but at the edge of our means. Wow. Where there's no room for anything else. And I have said this, because if I'm completely honest, my wife can confirm this. I have said stupid things like, it's just another payment. I can afford just another payment. And that's not, Scripture tells us that the borrower becomes a slave to the lender. And I don't want to be a slave to anyone, so got to be careful. So my wife and I are working through, not perfect yet, but we've been on a mission for many years to get out of that cycle. And another thing is, we love motorcycles, and motorcycles are cool. And the 2024 whatever is absolutely awesome. Yeah. It doesn't make you a more effective minister if you show up on a 2024 Harley Davidson, ultra limited, whatever it might be.
Are you sure about that?
I am
Can we
positive.
get that fact
You
check?
can-
Does
you
it
can
really
fact-
not?
It does not, because the ministry that we do here,
Yeah.
a lot of times is inside an event, inside a bar, inside of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
No one has any idea what you rode in on, and they don't care.
Yeah.
You're riding, cool. What newbies do is when they run out of things to talk about is they'll say, so what are you riding? You know, if you've been riding a long time, that's not a question anymore. And let's go a little wilder and crazy with this thought. What if instead of, and I'm going to quote one of my members who has said this before, what if instead of us members riding that $30,000 Harley Davidson, we don't go that route? Not that God doesn't want us to have the best or whatever, but if we stretch ourselves too thin, then an anniversary event that's going to cost some money.
Wow.
Maybe I'm so financially strapped I can't even participate in that.
Oh, wow.
And then bringing Sasha and Curtis over. That's a great idea. I don't have another dime to even help with that. So what if as membership we made some choices, some smart choices, and maybe we buy something used, good, used, quality machine that's not going to leave us stranded somewhere, but we're buying some quality stuff, and we're riding that for, just pick a different price point, less than the $30,000 bike. And then if we get wild and crazy, as an organization, as the membership of Honorbound, instead of me being so strapped financially, what if I became so financially free that we could start as a chapter putting money aside, and if we saved enough money, the next national that needs to replace the bike that they just put 100,000 miles on, what if Honorbound membership had the cash to help that national get their next bike?
Wow.
That's a crazy thought.
Yeah, but
That's next level thinking and living.
But I think that's a hard one to hear a lot of times, because nobody likes to be questioned on how they spend their money.
Right.
Right.
Don't tell me how to raise my kids. Don't tell me how to spend my money.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it. So we're on a podcast. No one's here live. So no one can, they can't boo me. They can't yell at me. I'm just saying, would you prayerfully take these things? And the visual is, it's like being in handcuffs and leg irons.
Yeah.
You're shackling yourself. You are limiting your ministry, availability, and effectiveness if these things are going on. If your past is holding you down, you've never gotten free from that. If there's unforgiveness in your life, you've never got free from that. If you have a lack of knowledge, you're not continuing to learn. And then if your finances got you so strapped, you just put the handcuffs on, you just put the leg irons on.
Yeah.
And you're just, not that you can't do ministry, but you just limited your movement. And is that what God wants for us? Does he want us limited in what we do, or does he want us free to do what he's called us to do?
Yeah.
And that's just 4 things. We could come up probably with 50 things if we sat here long enough to think of them. But those are 4 things that we shared at Hot Pursuit and kind of stuck with you, and I appreciate
it's real.
You. Right.
This is something I see in guys all the time, that I get so excited when they step up, and you can tell they've got a heart for it. But I've seen time and time again, one of these things, it really does hinder them. And then they get discouraged. And a lot of this, if you want to get it fixed, okay, there's going to be a lot of trust. There's going to be a lot of pain.
Right.
But you're going to have to trust God for a lot of this stuff. And when we do, God grows us, and we're happy on the other side. But it is scary.
Right.
It is, but it's a challenge,
right.
You know. And I think there's things that you say there. I mentioned the growing one, but I get challenged with this stuff all the time, and I think we just need to be aware of it, you know.
Right. Right. So that's just four things that, man, I think we have things set in place, the organization set in place, the heart set in place to do to I think I feel that there's a great harvest just out there,
Yeah.
just over the next horizon. But if we just shackle ourselves and we're not in the game, we're not in the fight, then what are we doing?
Yeah, I'm not a PhD expert in history, but I believe when we look at history, when the world sees eras of progress, I do believe it's tied to what are God's people doing. When we see human rights take a jump and we reach a new level, like we're getting rid of slavery, it's all what are God's people willing to do to further his message. And I think that's what we have to remember right now. God has us here for a reason. Are we comfortable being shackled and just doing things halfway? Because we'll continue to see bad things happen around us and the world not be changed. It will be changed. It will degrade and get worse.
Right.
But if we're willing to trust God, I believe we'll see our culture change for the better.
Right.
So these are important things.
Amen. Yeah, I think so. So that's what God laid on our heart back in September.
Yeah.
It stuck with you enough to bring it up again. So that's what this whole thing's about.
Yeah.
How do we get these messages out to Honor Bound as a whole?
Yep.
And that we're all hearing the same thing. And we just believe that this is going to be a great platform for this.
Yeah, yeah. See what it turns into. This is the first one.
Right.
I'm sure we'll look back on this in 5 years and go, oh my gosh, he should have been talking in his mic a little more or something like that.
Right.
But we'll work the kinks out. Maybe we'll give this thing a name.
Right.
And go from
we'll figure it out. So I want to thank you guys for logging on and being a part of this. I hope this was helpful. And especially those dates and the information, the announcements. Yeah. It'll be a video that you can go back and write that stuff down if you weren't able to write it down when it happened. So grateful for everybody that was a part of this. Share it with people after this.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we've even tonight talked about maybe it's need to expand it not just on the Facebook platform, but maybe it needs to be other places too.
Sure.
Because this is a closed group, and just Honor Bound could view this, the ones who are on Facebook. So we're looking at all those things. Yeah. So I'm sure we have some folks out there probably already have some suggestions, and we'll graciously listen to all that but see where we're going to go. So this was number one. Hope you guys found this useful. Yeah. Appreciate you logging on, and we thank our team that you guys can't see behind the scenes that set this up and got this going. So just want to say goodbye, good night, and we love Honor Bound, and we want especially let's make an effort to connect with one another, especially this anniversary. If you can make it, make plans. And listen, it's not going to be cheap for anybody. It's going to take vacation time. But make the plans now. Start making those plans. We'll see you there.
It'll come up before we know it. But yeah.
So Josh, thank you for making the trip over here.
Thank you for having me.
We appreciate it, and just want to say goodbye and good night to everybody.
Absolutely. You guys have a good one.